I feel like blocked back here behind the table. I feel like the right stuff. Or the Beatles. Remember you guys ever seen the footage of the Beatles where they did their, they had a press conference because they said we're like Jesus Christ. But we didn't say we were Jesus Christ. We didn't say we were better than Jesus Christ. We just, said we were popular like Jesus Christ. And people were like breaking their records and stuff. I'm gonna come around the front and say hey to everybody. Oh, there's no room up front. Oh.
Get on the table.
I'm going to strip for you now. Have I got a bone for you? Just kidding. Oh, thanks. No. This is cool. I just wanted to move around a little bit as opposed to standing. This is fine. This was cool. Thank you guys. I guess a lot of people would always like to know how I, started in the business. Now I wound up being the Crypt Keeper, which is always kind of an interesting story. And it's not a short story, but it's kind of a fun story. I always wanted to be an actor. I was always into horror. As a kid, I was especially into the Universal horror monsters. They were my favorite. I loved Frankenstein. You used to be able to get in the back of the Tales from the Crypt comic books and other comic books, you used to be able to order a 6 foot tall, pop-up of Frankenstein. And I had that in the corner of my bedroom, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd swear it was coming closer and closer to my bed, And so my mother thought that the Tales from the Crypt comic books were causing juvenile delinquency, which isn't true. I was already just a juvenile delinquent, but as you know, they were quite controversial during that time, and then one of the reasons why they put codes on comic books now, when you pick up a comic book and it has a age code on it, it's because of the EC Comics and the debauchery that came out of Tales from the Crypt and Two-Fisted Tales and Tales from the Vault and all those EC Comics. But I collected those as a kid, and started studying acting in high school. I got involved in all the productions, did all the musicals, tap dancing and shit like that, and wound up studying it in college. I went to a university in Baltimore where I grew up called Towson University, and they had a really good theater department and had people like, do you remember, who remembers Dexter? Dexter, the Sergeant Dokes, Eric King, went to college with Eric King. I went to college with Charles Dutton, who rock, who a lot of you guys know. Dwight Schultz came from there, who, as you know from all the Mad Men Murdoch and all the great parts that Dwight's played. And I got to do my first off-Broadway show with Dwight. And John Glover came from Towson, so it was a good school to go study to become like a really good character actor. So I got my degree there, moved to New York to do theater, and I think my first off-Broadway show paid $175 a week, which you can imagine living in Manhattan was not an easy thing. Living in Cherry Hill for $175 wouldn't have been easy. But so I started street performing in front of the Metropolitan Museum as a way to supplement my income. And I wound up getting a play off Broadway called Three Guys Naked from the Waist Down, which was it was about stand-up comics, and that was kind of the metaphor for what it feels like when you're bombing as a stand-up in front of the audience. And starred myself along with Scott Bakula, who was pretty much unknown at the time, and myself and a guy named Jerry Colker, who wrote the piece, and it became a big hit. And while I was doing the show, I was playing this very dark, kind of suicidal comedian, kind of like an Andy Kaufman-ish type comedian. And one of the talent scouts from a brand new show at the time called Star Search came up to me and said, "Hey, we want you to be on Star Search." And I go, "What, singing?" And they're like, "No, we want you to do stand-up comedy." I go, "Well, I'm not really a stand-up comic, just playing one in the show." They go, "Well, you can win $100,000. I went, fuck, did I tell you about my stand-up? And so, I went on the show, and having done sketch comedy and street performing, I would go on each week and I would do, I would do all kinds of funny voices and characters. I would do the Wizard of Oz in 2.5 minutes. It's a twister, Dorothy, Mania, let me in. Come on, Toto. As coroner I was I thoroughly examined her. She not only really did, but truly and sincerely did. We represent the lollipop you, the lollipop you, the lollipop you. Can't quite get up there. The wicked witch is dead. Oh, yo. What's that? That's the castle of the wicked witch. Oh, Dorothy's in that awful place. Oh, I hate to think of her in there. Oh, we've got to get her out. I got a plan to get in there, and you're gonna lead us. All right, I'll go in there for Dorothy. Wicked witch and no wicked witch. Gods and no gods is just one thing I want you fellas to do. What's that? Talk me out of it. Whoa! How about a little fire, Scarecrow? Whoa! You're cursing rat. I'm melting. Anyway, I wound up winning Star Search. It was kind of a bizarre thing for me because I really hadn't done much stand-up, but here I was every week writing a new 2.5-minute bit and keep winning and wound up in the semifinals going up against an unknown comedian named Rosie O'Donnell. And I beat her, and then I went up against an unknown comic named Sinbad in the finals and beat him and won $100,000. And they're like, all right, you're gonna be opening for Tom Jones in Vegas. And they're like, all right, that's great, John. I'm like, fuck, I got no act. How am I gonna open for Tom Jones in Vegas, So I got myself an act together, I got into the clubs and I started working up, as an opening act, you had to have 20 minutes. And I put together 20 minutes and eventually, opened for Tom Jones and Lou Rawls and Richard Belzer and Rodney Dangerfield and, all these different, the Temptations and the Four Tops on their TNT tour and all these different acts. And then all of a sudden people were like, well, you have to come headline at our club. And I go, well, how much material do you need to do to headline? And they're like, oh, an hour and a half. So I was like, okay, so I got my ass in the clubs and I started working up an act. And I kind of developed this act about a guy who was addicted to television. And I'd pretend to change the channels, be like, Scotty, be me out of here. I can't, Captain, I've already got him to War Factor 8, she's going to blow. He's dead, Jim. Damn you and your green Vulcan blood, Spock. And I would do stuff like that, and who's calling me? We should give him some shit. Hey, Scotty. No, I missed him. That would have been fun. Maybe you guys will go, hey, Scotty. Are you calling me? You calling me from the back there? Oh, I got it. I don't know you. How'd you get my number? So I worked up this act about this guy who's addicted to television, and people started seeing me doing all these voices and characters, and I was on another series on HBO called First and 10. Does anybody remember First and 10? There's a few of you. All the guys who watched it for the titties. Yeah. But it was Zagreb Skinuski. It was HBO's first series. It was about a football team, and I played the Bulgarian field goal kicker. I could kick 60-yard field goals. And he could barely speak any English, but he was getting paid all this money, and he'd be like, keep ball, get check. I play for the California Bulls, I fuck you both, yes? Stuff like that. O.J. Simpson was the general manager on the team. Yes, I worked with O.J. And I'm alive, yes. And Delta Burke was the owner of the team. Some of you remember Delta Burke from Designing Women and all these great shows. And wound up, working for HBO, and they knew that I did all these voices and characters in my act, and asked if I wanted to audition for Tales from the Crypt. And I went, they're making that into a series? I watched those comic books when I was a kid. This is awesome. I would love to audition for that. So they said, okay, well, just show up down at Kevin Yeager's studio, who I knew had made Chucky and had designed Freddy Krueger and all this great stuff. And I go, really? I'm going to get to go to Kevin Yeager's shop? And I go down there, and he has all these great, versions of the Crypt Keeper that he's working on. And so, he had nailed it down pretty close to what you see now. And so I went into his shop, and he had like a little boom box with a microphone that he was recording different actors, and there was, some different voiceover actors and some, comics and that kind of thing, maybe a dozen people, think like Michael Winslow and some other people, And so he takes me in the back, and I start doing this voice for him. And he's like, that's good, I like that. Be careful what you ask for, you may get it. And he's like, yeah? And I'm like, and then I go, and he's like, yeah, yeah! Next day, he has me doing it for Joel Silver and Dick Donner in their office. And they're like, okay, you're hired. And then I'm like, really? That's all there is to it? This is like the easiest job I ever got. And the longest job wound up being the longest job I ever had. So it was great. It opened up a whole new world of voiceover work for me, which, as a character actor is a dream. You're not, constricted to any part, because, I can play, old ladies, young boys, superheroes. I don't even have to be human. I play inhuman characters. Miko the raccoon, all these different animals and stuff. So it's been a really great thing for me in my career. It's been a nice situation for me to be able to play all different kinds of parts, and also, to do on-camera work, but not worry about those lean parts where you're not getting any theater or television or movie parts, which most actors experience. And you can go a long time without working on camera. And because I'm not limited by my voice, thank God, God-given talent. I've had a 38-year career of working in the industry, and been able to have a great life and a great fan base, which I appreciate immensely. I love horror, so I love coming to horror conventions, and I love mingling with my people, and having a good time. And it's kind of a perfect kind of way. I mean, you don't really know how your career is going to go when you start out as an actor. You really don't know, what path it's going to lead you down. And some people, fight the path that they're being pushed down, because they're like, I don't want to be Dustin Hoffman. I want to be Robert De Niro. It's like, tough shit, man. Everybody sees you as Dustin Hoffman. So it's like you have to sometimes, see where things are taking you, and see where your talents take you. And I was fortunate enough to me that my talents took me down the path. I mean, I think I probably could have exploited Star Search a lot more and become kind of like, at the time, all the comedians like Bobcat Goldthwait and Sam Kinison and Emo Phillips and all these really out there kind of comedians were online, and I could have really pushed that. But these guys, came and went because, they did that one thing really, really, really well, but, that doesn't give you a long career. I wanted a long career, and I've been very lucky, and I appreciate, having a fan base that helps me keep my job. So thank you guys for all that. And did you have any specific questions, or I'm going to open it up to the floor?
I have one, but you can open it up to the floor first.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask? Yes? About. First of all, I'll tell you that when I did Tales from the Crypt with Joel Silver and these guys, they owned the rights to Tales from the Crypt that they had licensed from the Gaines family. William Gaines is the guy who created the Tales from the Crypt comic books and owned EC Comics. And so Tales from the Crypt is a property that is owned by his family now that he's dead. And so the Tales from the Crypt people that I work with, it's not HBO. HBO just licensed the show, but what they call the partners, Tales from the Crypt Holdings, was Joel Silver, who did all the Lethal Weapon movies and Matrix and all these big movies that you know of, Die Hard movies, and Richard Donner, who was a big director, directed Superman and Lethal Weapon and Die Hard and all these great movies. Walter Hill, who did 48 Hours and a bunch of other movies that Dreamscape and a bunch of other great movies. Bob Zemeckis, who of course you know from Back to the Future and Forrest Gump and all the great movies he's done. And David Giler, who was producer of Alien. So these were the producers on the show, and certainly the biggest guys in the business at the time. Some of them, aren't as big as they used to be, but still big, and then some of them are still as big as they used to be. But, they asked a lot of favors and, and probably pissed off a lot of people during their time, and not all of them pissed them off, but, the guys with the reputations for pissing people off pissed them off. And Gaines' family was probably one of them. So they probably didn't want to give them back the rights at first and sold off the rights to somebody else. So the people that have the rights now to Tales from the Crypt have the rights to the stories of Tales from the Crypt, but they don't have the rights to the Crypt Keeper that I did, because that was created specifically for the series that I did. So you kind of have a catch-22. They have Tales from the Crypt, but not this Crypt Keeper. We have the Crypt Keeper, but not the Tales from the Crypt franchise. So whatever they may do with it, and they had approached me at one point to possibly be an actor on it, as kind of like bringing Alfred Hitchcock into his own movies kind of thing, where I'd be on screen as an actor. Whether that'll happen or not, I have no idea. Whether they'll even get it made or not, I have no idea. I mean, obviously the fan base would rather see the show revamped as it was. The Crypt Keeper is an important aspect of it. That being said, we don't have any control over the situation. Best case scenario, it's really good and I'm involved with it. Second best case scenario, it's really good. Third base case scenario, it's not so good. Worst case scenario, it's not good and I'm in it. So that's obviously, So what happens with it is, your guess is best as good as mine. So, I found out about it online just like you did, the morning that it was released in the, I did know that there were some producers that had the rights to Tales from the Crypt and were trying to do something new with it, and they had approached me, but I didn't know they were gonna, involve M. Night and these different people. But, hey, who knows, maybe we'll get something really great, and maybe they'll just maybe it'll just not be Tales from the Crypt, it'll just be called Tales from the Crypt, which wouldn't be great, but, we can always only hope for the best. That being said, the Crypt Keeper will never die.